Magic Brownies. Book 2 of the Cozy Mystery Series, Camping Girl. Written by Josephine Beintema. Narrated by Josephine Beintema. Chapter 5. Sabotage. I felt like I had been abandoned. The clerk had disappeared and was nowhere to be found. Once again, I was getting sore feet just standing and waiting, refusing to give up my position in line. Someone else patiently waited behind me. It had been over 30 minutes since she had disappeared, I guessed as I checked my watch again. Someone walking by in the lobby area caught my attention, and I waved quickly. "Hello, Mayor Whitcomb." "Ivy!" The mayor flashed a smile and came over to chat. "How are you today? Have a little business with our staff?" "I'm good," I smiled and hoped he might be able to help me with my problems. "However, I'm here for a kitchen license renewal. It's a bit of an emergency, and I was hoping to get it done today so I could bake for the food booth tomorrow at the farmer's market." "I see," said Whitcomb as he nodded thoughtfully. "Normally, license renewals take a little time. Have you thought about renting one of our other community kitchens?" "They all have been rented out already." I neglected to mention Bart Baker had been the one to do so. I am really in a bind. "I can see how this might be a problem," he agreed. "I would hate for you to miss your first Saturday at the market. We are going to have an incredibly special guest, and I was hoping to introduce the two of you." "Can anything be done?" I pleaded. "At this rate, we won't be able to participate." "Let me look into it," promised Whitcomb. "Do you have your paperwork?" "All the forms are on the clerk's desk, except for the kitchen license renewal. I think she took it with her," I replied. Whitcomb nodded. "Good. I'll just track her down and see if we can make this happen for you." As he left, I crossed my fingers, hoping he would be able to get me the license. My cell phone chirruped, and I had a quick look at it. A text message from Molly was advising me to grab a fire extinguisher while I was in town. I quickly texted her back, asking if we had passed the inspection. I didn't receive a reply. Biting my lip, I put away the phone. There was nothing I could do. Either Molly would be able to convince Tyrone Phillips our kitchen was safe, or she couldn't. It didn't look like we had many options at this point. Mayor Whitcomb came forward, followed by the board clerk, who suddenly looked a little more chipper with her boss in the room. She sat down and began typing away as Whitcomb came to talk to me. "We will file the paperwork today for your business and kitchen licenses," explained a jovial Whitcomb. "As long as you have the payment, we can release them today. Now, you will have to pass an inspection with the health department. The inspector's name is Tyrone Phillips. Don't be put off by him. He's a bit serious, but a good man." "Mr. Phillips is doing an inspection as we speak," I answered. I could only hope he hadn't failed the kitchen at the Happy Camper Resort. "Good," nodded Whitcomb. "Then, once he's completed his inspection, he will file the paperwork with us, and if you have passed, you should be good to go." "Thank you," I gushed in relief. "I very much appreciate this." The mayor took my hand. "Just remember to vote for me next election year." "I certainly will," I replied earnestly. I would do more than that. The mayor was going to receive a tray of treats from me as a thank you for all his help if this worked out. "Wonderful," said Whitcomb. "I'd better get back to work. The people need me." "Thank you again," I reiterated as he left. Looking nervously at the clerk's every move, I waited while she typed and printed the business licenses. "Here," said the clerk as she slipped them into an envelope, handing them over to me. "Your business license, your occupancy license, your kitchen license, and your events venue license. Note the time and occupancy limits so you don't exceed them. Once you have passed the health department's inspection, Mr. Phillips will upload the appropriate materials to us, and you will receive your pass certification. Mr. Phillips provides the initial temporary pass sign, but you will have to come in to replace it with annual permanent one. If the inspector recommends conditions which need to be met, you may still get a temporary pass sign, but will need to complete the improvements within the appropriate period and pass another inspection before receiving your annual permanent sign. Understood?" "Yes." I practically ripped the paperwork out of her hands. "Thank you." Rushing out the door, I hit the hardware store for a fire extinguisher. Once I had the purchase I needed complete, I checked my messages, which were empty. Calling Molly, it went to voicemail. "Call me back," I exclaimed into the phone before ending the call. Starting the car, I drove tensely hunched over the wheel back to the campground. Pulling up to the clubhouse, I noted Tyrone's vehicle was still there. Under other circumstances, I would have found the man sexy. He was a deep chocolate delight with a great physique in a suit. Unfortunately, he was also making life exceedingly difficult for me today, which was definitely not so sexy. Taking a couple of deep breaths to quell my anxiety, I walked into the clubhouse to find Molly leaning against the countertop and fluttering her lashes. "So, what's it like to be a health inspector?" she flirted outrageously, tossing her hair. "I enjoy it," answered Tyrone, happily absorbing the attention. "It's not like this is a job where you grow up thinking, 'This is what I want to do.' However, being a health inspector means keeping the public safe. I like going on calls, investigating kitchens, and enjoy the human element of the position." "Cool," replied Molly as she ran a hand down his sleeve. "Sort of like a modern-day superhero." I thought Molly was laying it on a little thick and cleared my throat. "Hey!" A surprised Molly smiled at me. "Did you get the paperwork?" "Yes, all the licenses are right here," I responded, waving the envelope the clerk had given me. I picked up a fire extinguisher, too. "What a great idea!" gushed Molly, as if she hadn't told me to get one. "It's always good to be safety conscious. Wouldn't you agree, Tyrone?" It really shouldn't have surprised me that they were on a first-name basis by now. "Good!" Tyrone came forward, looking at the fire extinguisher to see what grade it was. I had made certain to pick the best I could afford. Seemingly satisfied, he picked up his clipboard and struck something off, making a note beside it. "This will reduce your infractions, which means I can give you a temporary pass. You will need to make some improvements to achieve a full pass for the year." "How long do we have to make the improvements?" I asked. I also wondered what it was going to cost. 2 weeks, smiled a more relaxed Tyrone. He ripped off a copy of the paperwork, giving it to me. "I'll schedule with you a time and date for the next inspection to see the improvements. Looking forward to it." That last bit was said directly to Molly, who smiled back and gave him a little wink. I tried not to roll my eyes. "Bye, Tyrone," breathed Molly as he left. Once he was gone, she latched onto the report and temporary pass permit. "Took you long enough. Do you know how difficult it is to stall this guy? He is like hard chocolate, the kind that doesn't easily melt. We were so close to not passing." I looked at the paperwork in her hands, noting the fire extinguisher had indeed tipped us into the category of getting a temporary permit. The long list of improvements to bring the kitchen up to the standard that Tyrone wanted was daunting. I've worked in places which have worse kitchens than this one. How can they still be in business? "This guy is a stickler for details," groaned Molly. Then she grinned. "We passed, though. Now we can grab the girls and bake." With a shriek, I grabbed her in a hug. We were both rock stars today. We did the near impossible and are about to launch a baking business. Molly laughed, and we took a moment to celebrate before Bea poked her nose in the door. "I take it from all the ruckus that we have passed?" questioned Bea. "The inspector's car is gone." "We passed!" I shouted. "Oh, good!" a relieved Bea stated before opening the door wide, carrying 2 bags of groceries. "Get in here, girls, and bring the food." Mabel, Agatha, and a bunch of other ladies from the campground filed in after, each carrying cardboard boxes from the local food mart. "I conscripted a few people to help," acknowledged Bea briskly. "I figured we could each follow a recipe and keep the ovens busy." "You're wonderful." I quickly hugged her and set to helping. "I'm going to pass around the recipes. Make them exactly as you see them, no substitutions. If an ingredient is missing, let me know and I'll troubleshoot." "What's with the crock pots?" asked Molly as a few of the women plugged them in. "Supper is getting ready while we bake," explained Mabel. "Then we just rotate off for a meal and come back to work." "It's the simplest," agreed Agatha. "Whoever invented slow cookers was a genius." "Agreed," concurred Bea with a firm nod. "Bea," asked a confused Agatha as she opened a box, "what exactly did you buy? Why would we need 5 packages of diapers?" "Or 10 floor cleaning solutions," questioned Mabel as she held up a bottle. "What?" exclaimed Bea. "That's not my order." "How did this happen?" I opened a cardboard box to find it full of a dozen fish dinners. We can't use this stuff." "I don't understand," muttered Bee as she stared into her own box. "I phoned in the order so the store would put everything together and I could just pick it up. I do it all the time and it has never been wrong before. I must have gotten someone else's order." "Well, we don't need hundreds of plastic cups," remarked Molly, closing her box back up. "Let's put it back in the car. If someone will drive, then we can call the grocery store to get this straightened out." "What will we do in the meanwhile?" wondered a concerned Agatha. "We still have other ingredients we can grab from our own kitchens. We will bake what we can until Bee returns with the grocery order." I shrugged. There was not much else we could do. The group organized itself, Bee heading to the store with one of the other ladies to get the appropriate groceries. "Thank you, everyone, for doing this," I told the group as I passed around recipes. "I can't begin to tell you how much it means to me." "We enjoy the chance to help," Mabel waved away my gratitude. "Now let me try baking that raspberry crumble. It looks delicious." I handed her the recipe. "Are you sure there are no substitutions?" asked Molly doubtfully as she looked at her recipe. "No substitutions," I reiterated firmly. "These recipes are gold and are best made exactly as the directions say." "Okay," shrugged Molly as she began to gather items. We were a little limited until Bee returned an hour later. This time she had the right order. "Do you know what happened?" an indignant Bee pronounced. "Some person called the store after I did and switched up our order. The nerve of people! The new girl was taking orders today, and she never even thought it might be a prank. What I want to know is who knew about us putting in a grocery order today." I had a fairly good idea who might have been behind the prank call, but I bit my tongue rather than voicing my thoughts out loud. I had no proof it was Bart Baker. We worked hard into the night. By 10 in the evening, the elderly portion of the group packed it in and left for their campers. I couldn't blame them. They had been working for hours in a hot kitchen on a voluntary basis. The 3 stoves couldn't keep up anyway, so I had a lot of batter to get baked up yet and planned on staying up until the wee hours of the morning to get through it all. Fortunately, the fridges were filling up fast, which meant I had a lot of baked goods to sell tomorrow. At 2 in the morning, I remember putting in the oven a batch of something to bake before sitting on a stool someone had scrounged up at some point during our baking bonanza. Setting my head on my arms on the island counter, I promised myself I would stay awake. At 6 in the morning, Molly shook me out of sleep. Bleary-eyed, I looked at the clean kitchen and had a sniff. "What is that smell?" I asked doubtfully. I wasn't sure I had ever smelled it before. Did something happen to the ovens? "Just your grandma's secret ingredient for the brownies," mentioned Molly as she walked past to the fridge. "It doesn't smell very good." I wrinkled my nose. "Don't worry about it. I tried a little of one, and it was delicious." Molly grabbed a tray of baking. "I'm loading the car. You had better get dressed and find some cash to make change. We have to get to the market and start setting up. Agatha told me the first customers start coming around 7. "Okay, I'm on it," I mumbled, stumbling off the stool and out into the morning. Once at the camper, I quickly changed, ran a brush through my hair, and let the doggies out for the morning routine. Dropping them off at Herb's, I managed to grab 2 cups of coffee and travel mugs for Molly and I before heading back to the clubhouse. Molly was stuffing the car and giving it an unhappy look. "There isn't much room here." "Oh, coffee! Thank you!" "We might have to make another trip. One of us can do that when we start running low on baked goods," I decided. "This way, things stay refrigerated." I never even asked if the baking booth had a refrigeration or if we need to provide a cold place for the baking that isn't on display on the table. "Live and learn," shrugged Molly. "Let's go and scope out the farmer's market." At the farmer's market, we found the correct booth, which did have refrigeration and hydro. It was a huge bonus in my opinion. It also had cute signage, which I would have to change to reflect our new business. A pair of stools were hidden under the counter. "Looks like the previous owner left us everything," I grinned. Under the counter we found a lockbox for the cash, complete with a key. We unloaded the Beetle and set up for the day. Molly went back for more baked goods, and sure enough, the early bird buyers started coming by, eager to see the new proprietors of our booth. We were one of 6 baked goods booths, as the market had a limit on space. I could see other people setting up games and events for the charity which was also taking place. Soon enough, we were crowded with all sorts of people. Tourists, seasonal dwellers, and regular townsfolk walked through the market, crowding the spaces. Orders kept me busy, and so did questions about who I was, my opinion on the best treats we had baked, and if I did any catering. After writing my number on a napkin for the 4th time, I realized I needed to make up some business cards with Molly for our business. It would save time and look more professional. When Molly returned, we took turns manning the booth and unloading more treats into the fridges. Getting through the crowd with containers of baked goods was a little difficult, and when I returned I could see Molly smiling up at Detective Armand while fluttering her lashes yet again. I was surprised to see the detective in police sweats, as usually he was in a full suit. However, I supposed it wouldn't be practical in the June heat. "Oh, hey, Ivy," purred Molly. "I was just telling Luca here how good the turnovers are. I just love something sweet and tart. These lemon raspberry ones are to die for."
"I was hoping to get something for the whole crew," said Armand. "We have half the police department here doing games for the fundraiser. The chief is hopeful we can raise the majority of the money needed for our Cops for Tots program where we buy toys for underprivileged kids."
"Handsome and a humanitarian," giggled Molly.
Armand gave her a doubtful look before turning his attention to me. "Do you have any baked goods that are going to be a sure favorite for the group? Maybe a couple dozen squares of something?"
"How about the brownies?" I suggested. "It's my grandma's recipe, and everyone has been raving about how good they are. Chocolate is always a good choice."
"Sold," replied Armand as he dug out his wallet.
"Are you sure, Ivy?" questioned Molly, suddenly serious. She leaned toward me, giving me a peculiar look. "I thought someone else had ordered the brownies."
"We made 6 dozen, I shrugged. I certainly hadn't taken any orders, and this was a sale in hand.
"I'm sure we will have more than enough." "If you say so." Molly pursed her lips and straightened a different part of the display. I bagged up the brownies, happily taking Armand's money.
"Thanks."
Armand gave a smile, transforming him from rugged to handsome with his tan and athletic looks. "Come by again," I murmured as he left. "Come by again," chirped Molly in a high voice as she laughed at me. "I meant come by again, as in purchasing some more baked goods," I quickly covered, trying not to blush at her teasing. "Are you sure you know what you're doing?" asked Molly. I quickly straightened out some packages, trying not to get drawn into whatever strange notion was crossing Molly's mind. "It's fine. It's cool. Now we have got customers." The morning rolled into the afternoon, and a wave of people suddenly appeared, following a group of people, some with small cameras on their shoulders and a boom mic in the air. "Oh my word! There's Fergie!" breathed Molly. She spotted the famous food television celebrity. "It's her!" I rose to my tippy toes to see through the bystanders. Sure enough, the slightly plump hostess with excessive makeup, a flair for dramatic hair, and wildly colorful dresses was laughing at something Mayor Reuben Whitcomb had said. I blinked in surprise. It's true. She came to Oaks Crossing. "Did I tell you the mayor told me he was hoping to introduce her to us?" "Really?" squeaked Molly, darting me a look of disbelief before gluing her eyes back to Fergie. "I've always wanted to go on Fergie's fiery kitchen. I've always wanted to be Fergie." "Well, now's our chance to meet her," I gulped as Whitcomb gestured to our booth. "We are so not prepared for this," muttered Molly. "Smile," I elbowed her.
"Good afternoon, ladies." A smooth Mayor Whitcomb kept his election smile in place as he led Molly's idol over to us. "This is Fergie from Fergie's Fiery Kitchen. Fergie, this is Ivy Thurman and her friend—"
"Molly! My name is Molly. It's an honor," breathed Molly, shaking the television host's proffered hand. Fergie looked amused at Molly's starstruck expression. "Nice to meet you. Look at all these goodies. I think I might just gain a few pounds while I'm here." Everyone in the crowd laughed good-naturedly. "Would you like to try something?" I offered. "I definitely would," chuckled Fergie as she looked over the table. "Do you ladies have a favorite?" "Raspberry crumble bars," I suggested. "They are a sweet yet tart treat, soft and crumbly with a healthy feel for a light snack." "Then I need to try one of those." Her eyes lit up with excitement. I put a couple of granola bars on some napkins, giving one to Fergie and the next to the mayor. Both of them chewed in delight.
"Oh, this is a slice of goodness," mumbled Whitcomb as he daubed his lips with the napkin after finishing the square. "Ivy, I need to talk to you about placing a weekly order if the rest of your baking matches the quality of these bars."
If you're a fan of maple flavors, you should try the salted maple pecan pie bars. I quickly took a couple, placing them on napkins. They're made with maple syrup. Indeed. Fergie's fingers happily took the treat. Do you often cook with substitute ingredients? Only if it works with the recipe, I replied sagely. It doesn't do to make something so fancy that the baking is spoiled by conflicting flavors. I love old recipes which are simple, but there is always room to improve when one can. Delicious! A buttery pie crust drenched in maple syrup with a salty zing, moaned Fergie delicately. Is that sea salt I taste? It is, I grinned at her appreciation. You have a penchant for flavor. That's why I'm on the cooking channel, bragged Fergie. Now, who taught you how to bake? My grandmother, I smiled happily. Each summer I would come here as a child. Grandma taught me everything I know about baking. When to stick to the tried and true, and when to experiment. She was the expert baker. I'm just glad to have been taught by her. My fondest memories are of her in the kitchen, smelling cinnamon and chocolate. She taught you well. Fergie tapped her lips with a finger, looking at me shrewdly. Have you ever thought about doing a cookbook? I have thought about it, I admitted. Perhaps someday I'll be able to. Right now, Molly and I are just trying to get our new baking business off the ground. We are hoping to do a little catering along with the farmers market on Saturdays. Starting off small, but perhaps someday we can work our way larger. A sound business strategy, approved Fergie as she looked at the cameras. Watch out for Ivy and Molly. They are smart and talented. The mayor eyed another set of sweets. How are the lemon snaps? I've always loved those. Here, I said impulsively, picking up a package. Have a dozen for you both to share with the television crew. Isn't that nice? Beamed Fergie. You write down your details and give it to one of my people. You are in the running. In the running? Croaked Molly, grabbing my arm in a death grip so hard I was certain it was going to bruise. To be a guest on my show, Fergie fluffed her hair. To have a chance at co-authoring a cookbook with me. Molly's jaw dropped, and she managed to squeak out a thank you to Fergie. I was glad she had, because I wasn't. You are making a big mistake, yelled Bart Baker as he elbowed his way through the crowd and into the limelight. If anyone should be on your show and making a cookbook, it should be me.